In the previous video we crafted an entire Viking fleet, or two actually. In this video we're gonna build the by far biggest and most detailed diorama / gaming board I've ever taken on to build, a Viking sea battle. Very welcome to the Battle of Niså, and the second episode in a trilogy where we create a complete miniature tabletop game. While I've been preparing dozens of ships and hundreds of Vikings, Olof has created tons of beautiful art for playing cards and the rulebook. The other Erik has been working with the game mechanics and the rules of the game itself. From the very start we have been test playing, first on a table, then on a battle mat that we later pimped, but now it's finally time to build the real board. And this project is very special for me because I have the great fortune to live in the very landscape that I'm going to recreate. This is a big project for my tiny cottage, so I had to make sure in an early stage that I could even get it out of my basement. And as you can see, that just worked. These quite rookie carpentry clips are accompanied by my brother's awesome band Fink. I link them in the description if you want to hear more of that. We were considering if we were going to build this board in sections, but since it's going to be a diorama or a model for exhibition, we wanted it to look as good as possible. I'm also trying to make it sturdy because it will move around a lot. After making sure that the showcase we ordered fit, it's finally time to start creating the landscape. Starting with the foundation, I'm drawing the outline of this little part of my home coast here outside Halmstad on the Swedish west coast. It was in this specific location this epic Viking battle took place, 1062, almost 1,000 years ago. Mixing toilet paper in the kitchen blender, I suppose it's something everyone does once in a while. I've seen people doing this differently, but I find it much easier to mix the plaster directly into the wet paper pulp when I make my own modeling compound. Here I'm forming the coastal meadows on the tip of the Örnäs Peninsula, or Örnäsudden in Swedish. I'm forming the mouth of the river Niså, and here you can see the west beach. Shaping a couple of little creeks that actually flows here today. We don't know, of course, exactly how this landscape looked 1,000 years ago, but we want people to be able to relate to their home landscape in this model. After that, it's time for the ocean. And this trick is simple, it's just a lot of PVA glue, water. Then you just brush that on and put on layers and layers of toilet paper. After about 4 layers, I'm starting to shape the waves with my brush, trying to be natural about it, thinking about the most common wind direction and such, with the exception of River Niså that comes out in another direction. I walk down to my local little beach, Tjuvahålan, which would probably be called Pirate Bay or something in English, which I guess is a fun Swedish connection. Here I find nice little naturally polished pebbles in different sizes. That of course will be much bigger, but still ocean polished rocks in this landscape. For me, who has mostly built fantasy worlds before, it's a little bit surreal to start to paint the West Beach, where I've had many bonfires over the years with my friends. Back on the beach, I find an ingredient for my mud texture, which I mix with wall filler, PVA glue, and some cheap school paints in this case. While mixing this together, I can tell you a little bit more about the background for this project. If you walk on this very peninsula, Örnäsudden, today, you can stumble upon an information sign telling you about the Battle of Niså. And if you were standing on this peninsula 1,000 years ago, you would see 150 Norwegian ships in the bay, waiting for 300 Danish ships to arrive. And during a night in August, they fought an immense battle out here, in the waters of what then was called Lovefjorden, the Love Fjord, but today is called Laholmsbukten, or the Laholm Bay. Even if this is a sea battle between Danes and Norwegians outside the Swedish coast, the inhabitants here plays a part in this story. Here on the peninsula, Farmer Karl's little Viking homestead will be, maybe with a little boat down here. We will have some woodland over here where the quarry or Simstadion is today, beach and dune landscape, and maybe a little lonely fishing hut somewhere over here. So while building the Viking farm, I can tell you why Farmer Karl and his family plays a part in this story. Most of the lore from this epic event we can find in Snorre Sturlason's Heimskringla in the Icelandic saga. Here we can read about King Sweyn of Denmark, who is sitting on a throne that the Norwegian warrior King Harald Hardrada has had his eyes on for a long time. The two kings were former allies, but when these events occur, they have been enemies for many years. Harald Hårdråde has raided the Swedish and Danish coasts. King Sven, who is very annoyed with this, has now decided to put an end to this madness for good. But Harald and his Norwegian Viking fighters proves to be even more fierce than Sven has imagined. And outnumbered 2-1, they still have the upper hand in this fight that rages all through the night. And when King Sven realizes that the cause is lost, he, with some unsuspected help of a former ally now on the Norwegian side, the Jarl Håkon, manages to flee to dry ground, where he finds safety at the homestead of Farmer Karl and his family. Further, the legend says that the wife of Farmer Karl, who's sometimes called Sigrid in the lore, is back-talking the cowardly Danish king, without knowing that it's actually the king himself who is sitting at their table. Farmer Karl is said to have been generously rewarded for helping the king in need. Maybe not so much rewards for Sigrid. A Viking farm somehow is like a dream environment for me to live in, so I'm spending some extra time to make this a cozy place. Painting rocks is very familiar to me, but there are so many components in this project that are entirely new to me. I've never made a coastline before, and certainly not a huge ocean. So when the time comes now to paint the ocean, it's a little bit scary. I'm experimenting and came up with a blue that I like. This is tallow blue and a deep turquoise and a black. which I will apply in different quantities and mixes. We start with the deep water. With the advantage of having actually grown up here, I of course have a clear image in my head of what I want this ocean to look like. I want it to look like home. Here I'm blending in some lighter blue to try to mimic the play of sunlight on the surface of the deeper water. Closer to the shore, I bring out my sand color again and add that into the mix to represent a glimpse of the sandy ocean floor. It was a little bit difficult working with such a big area because I'm not used to the paint drying out before I can blend it, so sometimes I've had to add in some extra water just to kind of activate the paint again. I am far from a pro at this, so probably not using the right terminology or technique, but I think it starts to look pretty much like I want it to. And sometimes it just strikes you what a super nerd you are. With those final brush strokes done, it's actually time to start to decorate this landscape. Starting with yet another completely new project for me, trying to mix some kind of dune grass blend. I love this kind of environment and I want to do it justice. The scary thing about a project as big as this and as new as this is that there are so many things that can go wrong and have quite of a devastating effect. One of them is now, when I'm going to apply varnish to the ocean. I've never done an ocean as big as this, and my little experiments before were on much smaller surfaces. I ended up choosing a boat varnish, which I could buy in pretty big quantities for a reasonable price. I added 4 layers of this to get a sense of depth in the ocean. I also added some onto the beaches, little sandbanks and creeks to get this sense of really shallow water. After this, I'm bringing a cup of coffee out into my reference landscape again, in hunt for some new hobby materials. Out here I don't only find an amazing view, I also find great little trees and shrubs. Juniper I use for bigger fantasy trees, but today we're looking for heather. And I found that shrubs out here in these harsh, wind-battered conditions grows almost bonsai-like branches. That works perfectly for this scale. And it's funny how nature works in fractals like this. That the branch of a little heather can be a perfect tree. I do some additions in the form of coconut fiber here to give something for the flocking to catch on to. I seal this with diluted PVA glue, give it a little pruning, some brown spray paint, and these guys are ready for flocking. As flocking, I use my homemade colored sawdust. Many of these things you can find tutorials for in my other videos. A simple trick here is to start with a darker and then a brighter flocking to mimic the sun catching the upper leaves. I'm also making other kinds of trees, for which many of them I use flowers that I pick out here in my home environment. We are trying to make Sigrid's and Farmer Carl's houses feel a little bit more lived in. And then it's finally time to start greenifying this coastline. I usually work in patches with different tones of green to recreate a realistic ground vegetation. Starting out with sawdust flocking before the static grass. I also like the idea of making this Viking farm a cozy homestead because it's such a contrast to the mayhem that is going to occur on the waters just outside their little sheltered peninsula. So this is how it looks after the sawdust stage. And then it's time for static grass. Can you imagine how it would be to be a farmer here 1,000 years ago? And then one August afternoon, looking out over the bay and seeing 450 Viking ships clashing together, coloring the water red. And after this, it's time to find some washed up kelp and driftwood for my beaches. And I couldn't come up with a better idea than using actual kelp as kelp. So I brought some home, I baked it in the oven to get it completely dry, and then just put it in my coffee grinder. And this is kind of fun, because if you smell the kelp in this landscape, it will actually smell a little bit like kelp. Just a little, I promise. I bring out some leftover heather, which will be perfect driftwood. With a brush, I try to make the stones look like they have some lichen on them. And then it's time to start adding the lower shrubs, for which I use shredded and colored sponge. Or foam flocking, I guess you would call it. I really love this part of the process. It's so rewarding to see the landscape come alive like this. Like growing 500 years of vegetation in a very short time. After this final moss covering of stone walls and fallen trees, it was time to move the board upstairs to my last available room in my little cottage. We decided on a black frame just to highlight the landscape itself. The story of Farmer Carl and the fleeing Danish king is of course just a small part of the lore around these events. There are so many great character stories and intrigues revolving these happenings that you could make a role-playing game out of it. And we have tried to do our best to pick out the goodies and make them part of our game. In the previous video, where I craft all the little ships and where we select and kit bash and paint all the little Vikings, you can get more insight in the main characters of the game. Now it was time to find a good Farmer Carl. I like this one. He should have a couple of daughters, I think, too small to even hold on to. And of course, the farm needs to come alive with animals. Here is Sigrid and the little daughter hanging the laundry. Farmer Carl himself with a piglet under his arm, watching over his land. We put some props down, and this fisherman is actually representing a couple of friends of mine who have this as their favorite fishing spot. I made some little sheep out of millepat. And this unfortunate Viking have to lose his axe so that Farmer Carl and his family can chop some wood. And I'm using the heather branches both as living and as dead trees. This is a coconut fiber bush. Here comes my favorite little guy of the landscape. Just a random dude having a glass of mead, enjoying the insane entertainment on the bay. After fixing the last stationary details into the diorama, it's time to prepare the last remaining props for the game. We need some more sails for the ships, drowning and diving Vikings, some casualties, a couple of bannermen, and a few more fighters. Now we finally get to play with all the little ships and Vikings I prepared earlier this spring. In the game itself, there will be 24 ships altogether, manned by 240 Vikings. But I've made both additional ships, Vikings and props, because sometimes this will be a model or a diorama for exhibition, and sometimes it will be a miniature tabletop game. Here King Sven of Denmark gets a few additional fighters, as well as the Eriks and Harald Hardrada. Håkon Ivarsson has managed to sink a Danish ship. After placing out a couple of washed up casualties, we try out the showcase for the diorama, before shipping it to our friend Roger for a photo shoot. Here you can see how these photos turned out. Somewhere in all this Viking battle mayhem, you can find our 8 leaders. Håkon Ivarsson, a beast of a warrior on the Norwegian side. Skjalm Vide, a powerful and influential Dane with a Christian faith. The ghost-like shield maiden, you never know where you have her. The seeress, an Old Norse witch and a spellcaster. Ulf Stallare, King Harald's closest man. Finn Arnason, Jarl of Halland, the very area this battle is fought. King Sven of Denmark, eager to drive the Norwegians off for good. And Harald Hårdråde himself, his very name meaning hard ruler. While in the photo studio, we also had a lot of fun recording a complete battle report with our friends. So keep an eye out if you're curious about how this game works. It will appear soon on this channel. Will the Norwegians win, as in the history books, or will the Danes have revenge? We are also planning on making this game available for everyone, so very welcome to visit our pre-launch page on Kickstarter. See link in the description. And there you can choose to be notified when the actual Kickstarter is launched. Thank you so much for watching and take care. Till next time.